Job learned a great lesson in his unspeakable time of suffering, and to be able to face the unknowns of life, so must we. Victorious runners in life's race know that they are clay in the potter's hands, and the potter can do whatever he wishes with his clay. Can you accept this bottom-line reality? What's more, can you embrace it? Today, the end of a life-changing series. From the Moody Church in Chicago, this is Running to Win with Dr. Erwin Lutzer, whose clear teaching helps us make it across the finish line. Today, Dr. Lutzer concludes his series from the life of Job, a series entitled, God, Why Me? Listen now as he sums up his final message, the purpose of it all. Job's sufferings and ours are not random.
God is not subject to the futility of these random events. What is random to you and to me in the life of a believer is really planned by God so that the believer can say confidently, all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. You're driving along the city of Chicago. Traffic lights hinder you. The expressway is full of cars, traffic jams. There are all of these things that bother you. There are people at work that bother you. There are bosses that bother you. And there are co-workers who trouble your soul and who make life very miserable. Is God in these kinds of things? Are these just the happenstances of life that we need to endure because there's no other alternative except to endure them? Or can we take our piece of chalk and even include the providence of God around those events in the life of a believer? The answer is yes, if you have the faith to grasp it. Because all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose. And that means all things, including injustices. Trials are ultimately from God. And then thirdly and finally, the best way for me to communicate to you today so that you might understand what I'm trying to say is that every trial, I'm putting it this way, every trial has two purposes. Every trial has two purposes. There is the hidden purpose of God that sometimes we get glimmers into. Job saw some of the hidden purpose of God because he got to chapter 42 of his book. The Willis family has seen part of the hidden purpose of God because their witness has been so profound that many people have been blessed and challenged. And I'm sure that people have come to faith in Christ because of their example. But oftentimes the hidden purpose of God remains completely hidden. Try as you might, there is no purpose in it that you can see. I saw on the news last night that Nazi soldiers in a concentration camp would take children and throw them over the wall, and then other soldiers would try to shoot those children as they were falling for target practice. If you come to me and say, well, what was God doing there? What was His purpose? I have to remain silent. I will lay my hand upon my mouth. God has not shown us that purpose. It is a hidden purpose. There has to be some, but I know it not. But there is always a revealed purpose for trials in the life of believers. And the revealed purpose is simply that we might trust God. And that God might have the opportunity of showing that He can meet the deepest need within our hearts, even while our many questions go unanswered. The bottom line is, as I mentioned last time, it is not that we know the hidden purpose of God, but that we might know the person of God, and that is the real teaching of the book of Job. It ends up saying, even though my mind is unsatisfied, my heart can be, because I trust God. And I've lived long enough, and you've lived long enough to know that when you have the problem of the heart, when there is the loneliness of the heart and the questions of the heart and the tearing of the emotions because of what goes on inside of us, there is no explanation that can be given to the head that will be an ointment to the heart. Only God can meet the need of the human heart and say, trust me with the questions that are in your head. We all live with unanswered questions. But the bottom line is, can we trust God even in those areas where we see no purpose whatever? God's purpose is trust. The other day, Darrell Worley, whom some of you know, who's sitting behind me, as we were talking about the book of Job, pointed this out so clearly in the 13th Psalm. And I want you to turn to Psalm 13 for a moment. It's a very short psalm, but notice how clearly this is presented. David begins by just spilling out his heart to God and asking the age-old question, why? He says, how long, O Lord, wilt thou forget me forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? Somebody who's listening this morning is saying exactly those words. How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart all the day? That's you. How long will my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say, I have overcome him, lest my adversaries rejoice when I am shaken. Verse 5. But I have trusted in thy loving kindness. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he hath dealt bountifully with me. Notice the juxtaposition. You know, I kind of like that word. Juxtaposition of the two ideas in the psalm. One is, oh God, where are you? Answer my questions. God does not give him one single answer. And yet there in his presence, David's heart